Hi, welcome to this Zentangle class. My name is Meg and I'm excited to share with you the Zentangle Method. I'm a Certified Zentangle Teacher and I will explain more about what that means as I share this process with you. Wanted to share with you first the tools that I'm using. This is just a handy bag that comes with a starter kit that you might purchase, and in that kit also has 5 square tiles. This is what we call a tile. Also in that kit will be a 01 micron pen. Let me get that up close for you so you can see that. I think your best vantage point is here. Also a tortillon, which is also called a smudger in my vocabulary, and then a standard Zentangle pencil, and it's a pretty soft graphite pencil. So I want to just start by sharing some basics about Zentangle. In future videos, I will do more sophisticated tangles and share more methods and approaches and designs, etc. But this first video, I think it's important to share what has caused me to really subscribe to this approach for more than just an artistic method. There are basic steps to the Zentangle method, and truth be told, when you start out, it's really great, and even once you've been doing it a while, it's great to return to these steps, especially when you don't quite know what to do, if you don't know how to start. The first step is gratitude and appreciation, and what we mean by that is really examining the beautiful tools that we've been given, the quality of the paper, the quality of the materials and pens, and really just taking a moment to appreciate the time, the energy that's gone into sourcing these materials, and the loveliness of them and the opportunity to use them. The second step is corner dots, and I'll show you what that means. Then a border, then the string, the tangle, shading, initialing and signing it, and then once again appreciating it. So I follow these steps more theoretically than in actuality at this point in my Zentangle practice, but I do encourage you to not only be aware of them philosophically as it relates to the Zentangle method, but also, especially when you are not sure what to do, return to these, and it really is a great way to get started. For now, I'm going to start with, as I told you, I'm going to give you a couple of basics. This is, I would consider to be my introductory video, and you can return to this at any time to kind of understand how do I go about this, what's this about. Also, if you're new to the Zentangle method, I hope this will give you a good starting place and from which to spring forward. So the first step in Zentangle is to make those, or the second step, I'm sorry, is to make those corner dots. And it's really just using your pencil, your graphite pencil, making these 4 corner dots. And it's a way to help define this space. We're just creating a space. The next step is a border, which doesn't have to be straight. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be anything other than connecting those 4 dots. That's our border. And a string is a vocabulary word that comes from Zentangle specifically, and it has to do with creating a defining line through the tangle. And this one I've just made kind of random because I want to create several different spaces in which to show you different tangles. Tangle is another vocabulary word that comes from the Zentangle method that means a pattern or a design. And as we go through today's introductory lesson, I'll share with you some more vocabulary words. Every tangle has a name. Every tangle that the Zentangle founders, Rick Roberts and Maria, gotta look up her last name again, Thomas, that's it, have created, and their family members, who are all parts of their organization, have created these tangles or collected them from wherever they may come from, and then given them names, which is a super fun way to keep track of them. The first one that I'm going to do right here and teach you is called Crescent Moon. And the names really are not important to to the process other than as a way to keep track of them and catalog the tangles or use them again and reference them future if someone wants to know what you've done. So what I'm doing with this first tangle is these little half moon or crescent shapes like this right along this outer border that I drew. And the Zentangle is not a sketching art form. It's pretty intentional and deliberate. When we put the pen down to make a mark, we really are intentional about where that mark will go, and it's not a sketching sort of art form, really. There's other things you can do in the world that are about sketching, but this one lends itself to this really intentional placement of pen on paper and following a deliberate pattern at a pace that causes you to slow down a little bit and allows you to focus on what you're doing. The name Zentangle was really derived from two parts. Zen being indicative of the meditational quality of the process, and Tangle being the name for these different designs and patterns. And so we call a design a tangle. We don't really call it a Zentangle. We call the process and the program, I guess you could say it, Zentangle. But this, that I'm doing right now, is a tangle, and this one is called Crescent Moon. And it's an excellent tangle to start with because it gives you this beautiful, bold start. And so feel free to follow along with me and do these at the same pace that I am, or feel free at any time to stop this video and do it at your pace and catch up. I do have a little bit of a time limit on my video here, so I do need to move along at a pace that will help me produce this video in a consumable way for you. The Micron 01 pen was chosen by Rick and Maria after a lot of research and consideration of what pen would work best for a solid black line on this beautiful Italian paper that they also sourced. I do buy my materials from Zentangle, the company. As a certified Zentangle teacher, I have the ability to purchase directly from them and also to sell as part of my practice of teaching, although I don't really do a whole lot of that at this point, but perhaps in the future. And so this pattern is about the repetitive nature of this crescent moon. And what I'm doing right now is it's another vocabulary word you'll hear a lot, and it's called aura. An aura is like it's like an aura around another shape. So I have this crescent shape, and now I'm drawing this aura around it. We always turn the tile as we go. Really, it's about muscle memory and knowing how your hand works best. You know, if I draw my crescent moons from left to right, look at that, didn't quite come out the same as the other ones. I'll try it again. It's just a little harder for me than if I do it this way, from top to bottom. My hand seems to have more control over that mark when I go from top to bottom. Holding the pen just as tightly as I need to in order to control it, but not gripping it so tightly that my fingers turn white. Take a deep breath. Enjoy each stroke. The motto of Zentangle is anything is possible, one stroke at a time. And I absolutely agree with it, certainly as it relates to this. And I'm going to do one more arc around. There's not a specific number of arcs that you have to do. It's really whatever you like. None of the patterns that are named by Zentangle have rules around them. That's not the point. The point is simply to enjoy the process, enjoy the outcome, and you can make up your own tangles. Patterns are everywhere we look around us, you know, in curtains, in architecture, the ceiling, your cat's fur. Speaking of cats, I think I've got a visitor. This is my little kitty, Freya. Hello, girl. She's on the desk. Maybe you can't see her yet, but she might put her nose in the screen. There she is, little girl. She gets curious about what I'm up to. Sometimes I just lose my worries in a pattern. That shadow is my kitty cat. Okay, Freya. Yeah, you're gonna have to move them, girl. Okay. I discovered Zentangle when I was in grad school, but to be honest, I feel like I've been a tangler my whole life. And, you know, I used to call it doodling. And now, I think I'm going to keep going with this pattern and get inside of these, fill in the rest of these spaces now that I sit back and look at it a little bit. So I'm just going to keep going around with this arc pattern until all of the inner parts of this area are filled. And when I run out of a place, you see, I sort of pretend like it goes underneath that and then comes out the other side. There. They have a name for this in Zentangle, again a vocabulary word, and it's called a Hollabah. Hollabah, and that's actually Molly Hollabah's last name. Molly is one of Maria's daughters, and she's part of the Zentangle Empire. A beautiful tangler with really great talent. Love to watch her, and I take her classes, and I watch her videos online. She's just got a really nice style and approach all her own, which is delightful to learn from and watch. And the reason they named that going behind process, well, I don't know why they named it Hollabah, except I just know they did. They named it Hollabah, maybe because they love her, but the process of going behind, or appearing to go behind, is what they call Hollabah. And you'll hear Rick say a lot, behind in a Hollabah fashion. And that's just a vocabulary word to keep in mind. From time to time I might say, let's just draw behind in a hollabah fashion. So there it is. I have completed one whole tangle on this tile. We call these squares tiles. And this is crescent moon. And so for the sake of the process, I'm going to show you now the shading for this. And there's not one way to shade it. You can do anything you want. But I like the way it looks like it has depth in these areas and how sort of one seems to go over the other. So shading in Zentangle is not like shading in other art forms. It's much more forgiving, first of all. You don't really need to understand light sources and, all of the continuity of light sources. You just don't have to worry about that. You can make a decision about where the light is and where the shadow might be each time. It can be in different places on different portions of the tangle. You just do what you want with this. Don't let it stress you out. And I'm using this little pencil that was provided by Zentangle in one of the kits. And I'm using it kind of the side of it rather than the tip of it because I want to be a little bit messy about it. And you see I've put that graphite down pretty heavily in those spaces. And now I'm going to take this tortillon and I'm going to use it as a little smudger. Again, it's like you'll see when you do this how forgiving this is. Now if you don't have a smudger like this, you can buy them. I have bought them in packages. I've gotten them on Amazon in a little package, and usually they're called something like a drawing smudger, I think. I'll have to look that up and see what they're called when you look online. But it's it's made of paper, rolled up paper, and we use it as a way to spread this graphite, move the graphite around on the page. See here? Wherever I put it, I'm smudging it in now. And creating a beautiful 3D effect. It's so satisfying. In a very quick fashion, you see, I've created something that looks much more complex than it really is, simply by this repetitive pattern of crescent moon, and then playing up the dark and the light areas. What's above is light and what's below or behind is dark. And one of the things, if there is a rule in Zentangle, it's that we don't use an eraser. But I will admit that when I'm doing larger pieces or simply pieces that I want to give away as a gift or sell or etc., I might use a pencil from time to time to take away graphite where it's not enhancing it. If I mess up. As an example, if it were really important to me to have this border be clean, I might take an eraser to right there and take out this little bit of graphite that seems to be coming off the edge right there. But for the most part, I keep it. I don't use an eraser because there are no mistakes. There are no mistakes in Zentangle. It is about the process, about the time that you spend in a state of concentration and focus. And that's that. So there is crescent moon on my first tile. And we've used the hollabah technique of in front of and behind. And I've stayed, as you can see, within the string that I created. And that string line, which is a pencil, of course, sort of disappears into the design, which is one of the hallmarks of this method. The next pattern I do will come in right next to this first one, and together they will begin to form a multi-faceted design. The next tangle that I'm going to teach you is called hollabah, and you'll remember that I've described what hollabah means in this context as being in front of or behind. And in this case, we're going to practice doing that. It's a beautiful tangle that can be put into a variety of different sizes and spaces. And so for that reason, it's got a ton of flexibility. It's also a tangle that you can do a lot of different ways, and it can look completely different. I'm going to do a general application of it today to show you what Halaba is about. So I'm just choosing this sort of smallish space right here, medium-sized space that I have created using my string and my border. And randomly within it, I'm going to place my pen and draw a straight line from one line border to another. And then I'm going to do the same thing right next to that. And I've created, I don't know, maybe a small board or a noodle or a log or something. I'm going to turn my tile and do the same thing again, but I stop when I get to the line, pretend to go behind it, and come out the other side and continue. Same thing here. I draw that straight line, and then when I hit this line, I stop and continue like that, effectively making this board or noodle go behind this one. I'll do the same thing again over here, and this time I'm going to make it a little thinner, vary the sizes of these little noodles. Turn my tile. Continue turning, working at a nice slow pace that allows me time to concentrate and breathe while I'm doing it. And again, I'm not holding my pen too tightly. I'm not creating this anxiety that it has to be perfect. I'm pretty good at straight lines, but if I weren't, I could make these lines a little squiggly. In fact, some people deliberately make these curved. That's one of the what they call tangulations that you can do. It's a variety, variations, tangulation. And I'm making them all over the place in this section. As you can see, they are coming across this page, all different angles and sizes. And I go behind right there, go behind there, oh, there. It's a little hard when you have a whole bunch of them crossing over. You have to really focus there. Where would it be? Maybe right there, and then come out behind that. Maybe a couple more this direction. You know, if you draw over one by accident, don't worry about it. There's lots of ways that you can fix that kind of an error, basically in how you design within these borders. Lots of people like to do different things inside of these noodles. And if you make a mark across one, you certainly can incorporate a design inside of the noodles to accommodate that error. That is basically Halaba, and I'm going to shade that. If you remember, you know, shading can be done in a lot of different ways. In this case, I think it really works nicely to go alongside the outer lines of the ones that are on top of the others. You see, I'm doing this along kind of in the order that I did them. You know, pretty soon I won't be able to do that because I don't remember what the order was. But now as I turn, I see, well, this one goes on top of that one, so I will shade on the sides of that. It goes on top there as well. And it goes on top of those two. And there. And this is on top of that. And this is on top of that. Don't want to overshade, because in a small space you can really just kind of end up with a mess. You know, it becomes just so much shading that you don't have anything but shading, right? You can't see the primary design. There's kind of no white left. But you know, you get better at it the more that you practice, kind of understanding how much graphite do I need to lay down to get the effect that I want. I tend to be a little bit light-handed on this because I don't know why, but I just do tend to. And when I look at other people's work, sometimes I think, oh, it's so three-dimensional. I really want to achieve that. I think it's in the shading. I'm just not doing enough shading, and so I'm trying to be a little bolder with my shading sometimes. See if I can get the effect that I want. So I've laid down that graphite on the sides of each of those noodles, and now I'm going to go back in and smudge those lines and work the graphite into the paper on the outside of the noodle or board, whatever you think of these things as. I call them kind of noodles. I'm working those shadows on the outsides of each of those lines. And trying to leave those center parts pretty white. That effectively gives, you know, this sense that these are layered, almost like pickup sticks that have been thrown on the ground and they're laying over one another. There we go. So I've now done 2 tangles on this tile. The next one I'm going to do is in this space, in this small space here, and this particular tangle is called printemps, and that's a French word, Printemps. Printemps is a coil. And I have done this coil in my doodling my whole life, and maybe you have too. I like to start in the center and go out from there. And it just looks like that. And I'm going to do that again right next to it. And fill up this whole little space here with these coils. It really looks lovely if they do appear to be on top of each other a little bit. So if I start the center of the coil kind of close to the next one, then I know that I'm going to have to put outer rings around it to get the effect of a complete coil. So this is what that looks like. I can go over those lines if I want to, or I can make these appear to stop right at the line. There is printemps. And the way I'm going to shade that is around them so that they appear layered. And I don't have to do that on all sides of this one to get this effect. In fact, because this is a small space, and as I mentioned before, sometimes you get a little too much graphite on the paper, and it's no longer really helpful. I'm only going to put the graphite around the sections that appear to be on top of other parts, and a couple of little dark corners where I think it will enhance the over and under effect. And then lightly smudge here with my tortillon like this. And I'm getting this nice over and under 3D effect from those swirls. I hope you can see also, this is a great example so far of how the light source doesn't really matter. You know, this one has a light source from above, this one has light source from a variety of directions, this has a different, it doesn't matter. These work together under any sort of, you know, scenario. The next tangle I'm going to show you is one that's called Floors, F-L-O-R-Z, and it was created by Rick and Maria using their kitchen floor as inspiration, and it does lend itself to a variety of applications. So I'm going to start with drawing, you might want to wait and watch what I do, and then decide how you want to do it in the space on your tile. It is a grid pattern, and this is another kind of vocabulary word, if you will, in the Zentangle method, is a grid. And the grid allows us to put in a segment design, which then when you do it over and over in the grid, it creates kind of a secondary pattern, which can be just lovely. And I'm going to create this grid like this. And floors can be done straight, it can be done curved, the variety of any way you want, really. But this is a particular grid that I think is an interesting shape and size, mostly because of how I drew the thread or the string on this, because I love the juxtaposition of this piece sort of floating in this middle area and these bordering this thing that's so bold now. So from there, Floors connects these points where the corners come together with a kind of a little arc at each corner. And then we color that in. We do that on each corner. You see, I'm just kind of rounding off that corner. You can already imagine how nice and bold this is going to look when it's complete. At least these nice diamond shapes in the middle really create this very bold pattern. Remembering to breathe. Don't let myself hunch over too much, and, use my confidence in my strokes and my pen to do the work. Zentangle is an incredibly portable practice. When I was working corporate setting, I would often take a small CD holder, the plastic kind that hold a 3-inch CD computer disc, and I would put my tiles in that small floppy container. 2 or 3 tiles would fit in there at a time, and 1 pen in my purse, and I would tangle on airplanes, on trips that I would take, and most of the time I would give the tangle to the person sitting next to me because this does draw attention when you're doing it. People want to know, what are you up to? What are you doing there? So I often would explain what I was doing or talk about it, and sometimes they would just watch with curiosity but not talk to me about it. and I'd still give it to them. Other times just I'd put it back in the container and take it to my next destination or keep working on it. But another reason it's very portable is that it's small in its size, just in terms of, it can be larger, of course, but these tiles are 3 inches by 3 inches, and that size is really doable, kind of in a single sitting if you choose to. You can do 3 or 4 or 5 tangles on a tile at any given time, and they don't have to be complex, but they certainly can be rewarding, and the experience can be incredibly satisfying for you in a short period of time. And for those of us that take pleasure in, an applied art like this, drawing or using a pen, having some structure to it and a process to it is encouraging rather than just sitting and doodling mindlessly. What I'm doing is Zentangling or tangling mindfully. And that makes all the difference to me. In future videos, I will share some thoughts with you or choose a focus idea at the beginning of the video. Maybe a word or a quote, something that I might use to center my thoughts around as I'm doing the tangling. You see what a nice bold pattern this is creating. Wow. I have to pretend that there's one behind there. And let's see, go up here to these small spaces and make a little bit smaller ones. There is a pattern called floors. You can see how that might have come from a kitchen floor design. These edges here, I think I'll go ahead and just put in the same design on those edges because I think it will help it to look more complete and give it some continuity with that particular pattern. I like the way that and I also like the way this will look with just half of it on the edge like that. And over here. There we go. Love that. Now, how might I shade this? I want to show you maybe a different way to shade it. That maybe what I'll do is shade it in stripes like this, kind of across like this. And so I'm putting my graphite sort of at the bottom of each of these sections, or in the top there like that, so that I'll have a little graphite to work with to spread down into these shapes and up into those. Shading doesn't always have to be logical or based on what would this look like if it was a real thing. Shading can simply be, what does this look like in my mind? Or how do I want to make it jump off this page? So I'm doing this one in stripes, kind of like that. And then I'm going to take my tortillon and push this graphite up there and pull it down here. The same thing here. Push it up and pull it down. These are nice big spaces to work with. Push it up there and pull it down here. Sometimes there's enough graphite on the tortillon that if you miss a spot, you just rub it with your tortillon, and it's got enough on there to make it on its own, just without even having to pick up the pencil again. I can just spread some of what's on my tortillon over to that spot. In future videos, I will show you, as I said, some more complex tangles, as well as different size tiles and shapes. We have round ones, there are small ones that are called bijoux, they're precious. There are larger ones, there's triangles, and one that is called a phi tile. I'll explain what that means. There's just all variety of ways to apply this method. I also paint on rocks with different designs. So lots of ways to do it. And this, my friends, is the first tile in this series. I'm looking at it through my lens, and I see that the shading is not very dark in this view. So I apologize for that. In future videos, I'll do my best to make sure that you can really see the shading. Let me see if I can give you a little bit better vantage point there. So the next step after shading all the sections that I want to is to initial on the front, just as an artist does. Decide for yourself which way is up. What do you think is the up or the down of it? I think I like it this way, and so I'm going to sign it right here, or initial it here. That's my little Zentangle initial, and then sign it on the back, and I will end date. And once again, appreciate the tile itself, as well as the opportunity to spend this time with you and to teach you something that has been a great source of pleasure for me. I hope you enjoyed this particular video, and I hope that you'll come back for more. Please, as they always say, like the video and subscribe to the channel so that I can continue to do this. Appreciate you very much, and I hope you have a fantastic day.